Welcome to our ADA Accommodations Procedures for Students presentation.
Hi, this is Judith. I'm the Georgia Independent College Association Compliance Collaborative Program Consultant.
And I'm Jennifer Wilson Loggins, the Learning Center Director and Disability Service Provider for Brenau University.
Jennifer will be talking about specifically how Brenau University handles disability accommodations for individual students. But in general, what do we mean by accommodations? Accommodations are awarded to students who have a documented disability. Jennifer is going to explain to you how a documented disability is handled here at Brenau University. But specifically talking about reasonable accommodations, what are they? This is an accommodation to an individual who has a documented disability, and their modifications or adjustments to the tasks, environment, or to the way things are usually done that enable individuals with disability to have an equal opportunity to participate in an academic program or a job.
So specifically, how as a Brenau University student would you go about requesting accommodations? There are step-by-step instructions which are available for you on our intranet page. Also, you can always feel free to contact the Learning Center and talk with us on the phone or come in, and we will be happy to assist you and guide you through the process. Documentation of disability is really step one. You want to gather your documentation. You may need to ask your parents or call your high school, call your doctor, and just obtain that documentation. Most students submit a psychological evaluation or a medical assessment that includes functional limitations and recommendations for your accommodations. This can be in the form of a letter or a report from a physician, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a licensed counselor, or other medical provider who is qualified to make the diagnosis and is currently treating you for that disability. For students transitioning to college directly from high school, you may provide a copy of your IEP or your 504 transition plan, along with a detailed psychological evaluation by the school system. Often these are put in one document. You'll have the psychological evaluation behind the IEP. So the person writing your letter or providing your documents cannot be a relative of yours. For example, if your father is a medical doctor, or your mother perhaps, that person cannot write your letter. It has to be someone who's not related to you. It can't be your aunt, your uncle, your sister, your brother. Documentation must be on official letterhead, and it should be signed and dated within the last 2 years. This has to be a disability. We know some disabilities are permanent and some are temporary, but regardless, you should have current documentation of disability. Provide evidence that the provider is currently treating the student for this condition. So if you have a letter from 10 years ago from a psychologist saying that you had depression at that point or postpartum depression, but it's 10 years later and you haven't been back to that person in 10 years, and you even haven't been receiving any treatment in those 10 years, that would not qualify. You would need something that shows that person is currently treating you for a current disability. Documentation review is step 2. So what happens after you send that documentation or bring it to the Learning Center? What will happen is I, as the Learning Center Director, will confidentially review your documentation. This takes typically about 3 to 4 business days. I want you to know that this documentation never leaves the Learning Center. It is put in your file and only ever reviewed by myself or the service coordinator. Your professors and other staff at the university do not have access to look at this, and they cannot ask. If your professor reached out and said, "Hey, what is Jane's disability? What's going on with her?" I would say, "I'm sorry, I'm not allowed by law to tell you what her disability or diagnosis is. However, she should be sending you a letter of accommodations which lists the things that you need to do for her." Students may choose to schedule an appointment with me to discuss accommodations or concerns, and you can also just engage in this process by emailing me or giving a telephone call, and we can talk about your needs. If the documentation that you provide is sufficient, then I will go ahead and write this letter of academic and possibly fieldwork accommodations. If it's not sufficient, then I will reach out to you to ask for additional or more recent documentation. So step 3 is the letter of accommodations. I will prepare your letter of accommodations based on your specific needs and the recommendations of your medical provider. So if you have a friend who has a letter of accommodations, their letter may look very different from your letter. And that's because of the difference in your needs, your disability, and your recommendations of the medical provider. myself, the director, I will email the letter of accommodations to you, and I can only use your Tiger Mail email address. I cannot email it if you have a Yahoo or a Google or another email. I cannot email it there. I have to email it to your Tiger Mail, and this protects your privacy because I check and make sure that it truly is your student email address. I'll also be emailing you some instructions, some policies, and testing procedures, which we'll go into in a moment. The letter of accommodations from the Learning Center is always provided on Brenau Learning Center letterhead and is sent to your Tiger Mail email address. It's a PDF file and you cannot alter it, so please do not try. Step 4, the student shares the letter of accommodations with faculty. So you as the student are instructed to share this letter of accommodations with your current professors, your academic advisor, and your fieldwork coordinators or internship coordinators at the start of each semester. That's very important. You can't just share it one time with the professor and then maybe you have that professor again 3 years later and say, well, I've already shared it. He already knows. We have so many students that we really need you to share that letter at the beginning of each and every semester. You can do this by emailing it to the professors, printing the letter out and providing it to them during office hours or making an appointment. This is a very important part of self-advocacy. You may have experienced in your life people doing things for you that you're fully capable of doing for yourself. And so we are trying to break out of that mindset and teach you those self-advocacy skills that you will need in the workplace and to be successful in life. Self-advocacy is simply speaking up, saying, I need this, and talking to the people who can provide it for you. It's best if you actively participate rather than asking Learning Center staff to send this letter on your behalf. Arranging the testing accommodations. So you have some options as a student. Students may arrange to take tests at the Learning Center, or you can arrange with faculty to provide the accommodations. But please know that prior notice is required for both options. At least 3 business days. Certain tests, such as HESI nursing exams, cannot be proctored at the Learning Center due to IT restrictions. There are also other exams, such as clinical skills assessments or lab exams, that we just cannot proctor at the Learning Center due to many different factors. So arranging testing accommodations. Students may schedule a testing appointment with the coordinator of disability services at the Learning Center, but you must do so a minimum of 3 business days prior to the class testing date. The best way to do this that I would recommend is simply to make a list of all of your testing dates for the whole semester. You receive these on your syllabus. Each class will provide you, each professor will provide you with a syllabus, and you will see from day 1 exactly what your testing dates will be for that class. And you'll just make a list and email that to the coordinator, and then you can get all your testing dates on the Learning Center schedule, or meet with your professor and be able to talk with them about that you would like for them to proctor for you. If you don't want to come to the Learning Center. The coordinator, if you do schedule at the Learning Center, will then reach out to your professor, and this will be done in a timely manner after you book your testing appointment. The professor will be asked for a copy of your test or for information if it's an online test. Our business hours are 8:30 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. We do close for lunch daily from 12 to 1, and our summer hours may vary due to training or conferences we're attending. If you would like to schedule with us, please do bear this in mind, simply because there are certain times that you would not be able to test in order to stay within the business hours. We do have limited space and staff, so we don't do walk-ins or last-minute, same-day scheduling. If you forget the test, if you forget to schedule, you may just have to go to class and take that, and you will still have your extra time, but you may just have to stay late in the class. Absolutely no weekend testing is available for any reason. Extended hours until 7 are available only for students currently enrolled in evening courses. If your class meets from 6 to 10 p.m., then sometimes we'll have you come to the Learning Center at 4 or 5 and test going through until 7. The latest that the Learning Center ever stays open is 7 p.m., and we try to work to stay within the business hours. We do offer extended hours during finals week as the only exception. And What do you do if you have a situation where you feel like your accommodations aren't being honored, or you have concerns regarding how they're fulfilled by faculty or others? What should you do? So your first step is simply to reach out and contact the Learning Center, and we'll give you guidance and advocacy. Sometimes it's a simple resolution. It's just an honest mistake. We can reach out and say, hey, you forgot to add her time, or things like that, and the professor will just rectify that in the moment and the problem is solved. However, if we cannot work with the professor and the student to resolve the issue, then we simply advise students to follow the institutional grievance policy, which provides information on informal and formal grievance procedures, which is per the catalog and can be found on the intranet as well. If you have questions regarding your accommodations or anything that we can help you with, please reach out to us at the Learning Center. And you can obtain much more information on our website, step-by-step instructions. Thank you so much. We look forward to connecting with you soon.